Human Services Committee meeting to order, and welcome those visiting us live streaming this morning. First item of business, declaration of pecuniary interest, either now or if it arises down the agenda. Action items. Christine.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, we have before you, I think is now the fourth iteration of our childcare service agreement for 2018. There was some modifications that had come forward. Given the late nature of the signing of the agreement, we did have a reduction in funds related to that. So the total reduction for the expansion plan is $80,262. And of course, we will manage that with a reduction in expenditures within that program. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation to get it on the floor? Moved by David, second by Milt. Are there any discussions on the staff recommendation? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.
The next item that we have before you, we have a staff recommendation that the Bruce County Early On Fall Program continue as planned for this fall, and that the Early On staff work with Brockton staff to engage in further exploration of possible space for early on programs in Brockton in future seasonal sessions. And so you'll be recall that Brockton Council had put forward a resolution that they were asking us to look at this and consider the circumstances of the shift in services through the early on program. There is a report that outlines many different considerations and piece of information that went into decisions regarding the decision to move the space from the Bruce Lee Center, and the Bruce Lee home needs that space, so we do not have opportunity for the early on program to continue within that space, but we certainly are open to looking at if there are other space options available that we can offer programming in Brockton. We are continuing to offer programs. The program that, in particular, that the families are really asking for it to be continued is what we call our Adventures in Play program, and it occurs generally 2 hours per week at a location. And so definitely we can look at, is there opportunity to find a space that would be suitable and meet the criteria that we have, so that in the future we could continue to offer that specifically in Walkerton. What that will require is an assessment, though, of what program do we stop doing in another location during the season that we offer it here. Because as outlined in the report, we do have 6 staff that do programming right across the entire county. And you can see in the report as well, just, the mapped locations of the sites where we're offering those various services with the 6 full-time staff. And I can answer any questions if there are any.
Mover and seconder to get it on the floor. Moved by Mike, second by Ann. Discussions. Mike?
How big a space do you need for this? Like, how many square feet?
So the amount of square footage that we have dictates how many participants that we can have in a space at a given time. Typically for the adventure and play type program that we're talking about, you'd have a caregiver and then maybe 1 or 2 children that they bring with them. Sometimes caregivers might bring multiple children. For example, a grandmother might bring 3 or 4 grandkids with her. But so it really depends on the size of the community in terms of how many people attend. In our larger population areas, we sometimes offer more than 1 play group a week. So for example, a place like Kincardine, we might actually offer it a couple times a week so that people can decide which day works better for their schedule.
I just, being a grandfather, I have go occasionally to these things, and I was at one in a church where in this routine in Saugeen Shores, there's 58. These are preschoolers, 2, 3, 1, and it's it's a fairly big spot. But I just wonder, the church offers that. I wonder that might be an option.
Yes, and what we do find is often with the churches, unfortunately, they're not always accessible. And so as we move into a realm where we need to ensure that accessibility, we definitely can look at those different pieces. And, sorry, I had another thought too, just to share with you. For example, the fitness program that we have, or physical literacy program that we have that happens in partnership with Brockton. We use space in the arena. On a regular basis, we have 70 plus participants to that program. And so when staff were making a decision about, we don't have space available in Walkerton, that is the most popular program in Walkerton. But obviously there's a strong need for the Adventures in Play as well too.
Other comments, David?
I'm sure Christine will look after the needs of the folks in Brockton, and we'll certainly work with you to find some space, because how many were in that program when the change was made in Walkerton? Do you recall?
So our current space at Bruce Lee Haven, we had a limitation of about 30 people at any given time. So what was happening is that sometimes we were turning people away if they'd arrived, because we only had a maximum space. And so that was part of the reason for a bigger space. And we definitely increased our square footage and our ability to have more people in the new site in Chesley. But we'll continue to look at that in terms of, can we offer a space that would accommodate more than 30? Because that would be ideal if we're running it again in Walkerton.
Other discussions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the staff recommendation? That is carried. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, the next report is a request regarding the use of our reserve funds that are specifically set aside for the development of affordable housing. And as you're aware, we've started to move forward on the Kincardine project, and so we are looking for approval to be granted for the expenditure of reserve funds for the purpose of fulfilling requirements related to the affordable housing development project in Kincardine.
So that is the recommendation. Mover and seconder. Moved by Ann, seconded by Robert. Discussions? Ann?
Well, I definitely support this wholeheartedly. Affordable housing is just one of our greatest needs right now. I hear it all the time.
Other discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried.
Through you, Chair, the last action item that we have on the agenda today is an update to our rental lease agreement for 325 Lambton Street in Kincardine. That's where the housing staff are located out of. And so purchasing has worked with the landlord and is suggesting a 2% increase for the space there. And so we are asking for a bylaw to be introduced authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between the Corporation of County Bruce and Sam Dune Holdings to provide rental office space for housing services and housing facilities.
Mover and seconder for the recommendation, and seconded by Paul. Any discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. I will declare a conflict on the next item, West Ontario Power. I'm a board director. So Paul, I will turn it over to you.
I can chair for here, so that take it away, Christine.
Thank you. So we have before you a summary report on the West Ontario Power Low Income Energy Assistance Program, the financial assistance funding for 2018. You will see in the report that staff have outlined the disbursement of the LEAP funds across the counties. So we do administer the program for all areas served by West Ontario, which include Bruce, Grey, Huron, and Wellington. Generally, the largest base of West Ontario customers is in Bruce County, which is why we have the greatest share of funds being distributed in our area. Staff have also outlined if we've denied applications, where that has occurred, and the reasons for the application denials as well.
The recommendation,
It's simply for information.
okay, that's good then, yeah. Yeah, any questions? Mel?
Yeah, so West Ontario Power, so what happens with Ontario Hydro? Is the same thing, or?
So each provider of a hydro service does have a fund, and they're required under the OEB regulations to provide a certain amount of funding. A different service provider provides that service. So it's out of the 211 program.
Okay, good.
invite Mitchell back.
Yes.
Hey, Mitch.
Oh, you can. Oh.
No, but that's, Mitch just made a point there, if you're in there at a coffee,
It's still
You
here.
can hear
you
everything.
can hear very clear what's
Yeah.
going on in here, because it's coming out of that, it's coming out of the computer that's in that little cupboard there.
So you hear everything.
You hear all the vocal out of this room, coming
Yeah.
out of that little
You
room.
can hear it in the loo too.
There's
Yeah.
a little, it's coming
Right-
out of
right
the little
outside
room
the
beside
door.
the washroom,
Yeah.
beside the coffee pot, like there's computer equipment in that room.
Yeah, I can hear
and
it.
it's
The
coming out of
speakers,
that computer
coming out of the
equipment
speaker.
right into the room, what's getting said there.
Now you know all the secrets, eh?
So you gotta be careful what you say around here.
Whereabouts are we? Act on recommendation. Do I have a mover and seconder? Janice, Milt? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Next meeting, November 1st, move to adjourn. Janice, Paul. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's